So, How to Make a Killing, directed by John Patton Ford, starring Glenn Powell as Beckett Redfellow, a guy who was disinherited from his wealthy family as a child, raised by his single mother, who was basically exiled from the Redfellow fortune for having a teenage pregnancy, and who has spent his entire life being told, "You deserve more than this, go get what's yours." And then he decides as an adult to just kill everyone standing between him and the inheritance. That premise alone got me in the door. It has a very good poster that feels like a 2000s movie with, that kind of basic premise on it. I saw this in theaters, which I could easily have skipped, and I could have waited for streaming and no one would have blamed me, but there's something about seeing a movie like this the way it was meant to be seen, and I'm glad I did. Now, is this a great movie? No. Is it a good movie? I think so, in a specific, limited, fast food kind of way. So let me explain. John Patton Ford's last movie was Emily the Criminal on Netflix. Aubrey Plaza as a single woman with debt who gets pulled into a credit card fraud operation just trying to survive. I enjoyed that movie. I went back and looked at my own notes on it. And it's funny because my main takeaway was basically, this is so straightforward. Like, you keep expecting a twist, you keep expecting the movie to swerve, and it just doesn't. It's a very formulaic but interesting story about people trying to make a life for themselves. That's it. And it works because of Aubrey Plaza and because Ford keeps it grounded and lean. How to Make a Killing is similar in its moral DNA. There's a character making genuinely criminal choices, and the movie isn't really interested in punishing him for it in a conventional way. But it is a much bigger, slicker, more stylized swing. This is Ford going full caper movie, full noir. It's loosely inspired by Kind Hearts and Coronets, the classic 1949 British black comedy, where a guy systematically eliminates everyone in his aristocratic family, standing between him and a dukedom. Which is a great source to draw from, honestly. That movie is vicious and funny and elegant. Whether this one lives up to it is a different conversation. So here's the setup. Beckett Redfellow, played by Glenn Powell, narrating from death row, talking to a priest, is the illegitimate heir to an enormous family fortune. His mother, Mary, was kicked out of the Redfellow family for having a teenage pregnancy and raised him alone. Before she died, she told him, "You deserve the life they took from you, go get it." So he does. He works at a financial investment firm. He actually gets his foot in the door after killing his first cousin Taylor and then charming Taylor's father Warren into offering him the job at the funeral, which is a great bit. Because this movie has people die and it treats it as a satirical dark comedy. It's fun to watch for that. Like, the hook of the movie is, you're watching this guy kill his family, but it plays it as such black comedy and there's such irony. It is fun to watch. And he just starts working his way through the Redfellow family tree. Taylor, Noah, Stephen, Cassandra, MacArthur, one by one, while also getting rapidly promoted at work, falling into a relationship with Ruth, played by Jessica Henwick, who is Noah's girlfriend, and getting engaged to her, just living his life, murdering his relatives on the side. The wrench in it all is Julia, played by Margaret Qualley, his childhood friend now married to a broke husband named Lyle, who figures out what Beckett's doing and starts blackmailing him, and then Lyle turns up stabbed to death in his office. Beckett's fingerprints are on the murder weapon, and suddenly he's on death row for not a murder he actually committed, but for the one he didn't. This movie has a good plot. It's a fun, twisty, propulsive plot. The ending, where Julia ultimately holds all the cards, gets Beckett freed by releasing Lyle's suicide note, and then walks away with the entire Redfellow fortune, while Ruth silently hands Beckett back his mother's locket and leaves, is actually kind of great. It stings in the right way. Now, the genre on this movie is a little weird, and I think that's part of why it didn't break out bigger. It was being marketed and talked about as a comedy, kind of. People like me, really, were comparing it to Knives Out, and I get that. It has that same cozy, twisty, isn't this fun energy, but it's not really a comedy. It's more of a black comedy thriller, a caper, a potboiler. It feels like an airport mystery novel adapted by someone who really loves early 2000s neo-noir. It feels like the 80s and 90s in the best way. There's even something about the poster, Glenn Powell with his gun, 28 billion inheritance, 7 relatives standing in the way, that channels that specific era of movie. A good high-concept pitch executed with style. And the style is where this movie lives and breathes. Glenn Powell's doing exactly what Glenn Powell does. He's charming and watchable and carries the movie on pure movie star presence. The film looks great. The cinematography by Todd Bainhazel is slick. The pacing is tight at 105 minutes. Emile Mosseri's score does the thing where it makes everything feel a little more elegant and playful than it maybe deserves to be. There's also a real pleasure in watching the escalating kills and the way Beckett just compartmentalizes everything, going back to the office, getting promoted, planning his engagement party, while bodies pile up around him. The movie earns its dark comedy moments when it leans into how casually Beckett moves through all of this. And the ending works. The irony of Beckett being convicted for the one murder he didn't commit, and then losing the entire fortune anyway to the one person he should have seen coming, is satisfying. That's a good ending. But here's the thing, the movie never really takes its moral dilemma seriously. And I'm not saying it needs to be dark and heavy, this is clearly not that movie. But there's an interesting question at the center of this. Is Beckett actually in the right? His family are these cartoonish billionaire monsters, old money, the kind of people who exile a woman for having a baby and then hoard a $28 billion fortune. This is, firmly in the eat the rich territory. And we've had a lot of these lately. The Menu, Triangle of Sadness, Death of a Unicorn last year, which was A24 also, and didn't quite hit the mark. The difference here is this movie isn't really interested in the critique. The rich people are just set dressing. The eat the rich element is pure vibe. And because the movie never digs into it, the characters around Beckett end up pretty thin. Ruth, Jessica Henwick, is fine, but we don't really understand who she is beyond being a vehicle for Beckett's conscience. She's the person who makes him feel like maybe he doesn't need to do this anymore, and then she leaves him at the end. And it lands, but it lands on borrowed emotion. Margaret Qualley as Julia is there to look fantastic and be the femme fatale, and she does that excellently. But that's it. She's a type, not a person in this movie. And the boardroom scenes, the finance world stuff, it's all very surface level, very let's put out some fires corporate speak that gestures at a world without ever really inhabiting one, which is fine. It doesn't need to be Succession. But the entire film has this quality of being polished and entertaining and completely disposable. The movie I keep thinking about was Crime 101, that action bro heist thriller from a couple weeks back. Very different vibe, and they're both fine. They're both pot boilers. That was pure testosterone action. This is more comedy suspense, more Knives Out energy. But they both have that core quality. They're both extremely basic in ways that are extremely entertaining. You know exactly what you're getting. You know it isn't profound, and you're just kind of like, you know what, that's fine, I'm having a good time. And given what else I've been watching lately, I just saw Scream 7, which was constantly making me angry, frustrating me with choices that felt like the filmmakers were actively disrespecting the audience. How to Make a Killing is a genuine relief in comparison. It did not make me angry, it did not frustrate me. It knew what it was, and it delivered that thing competently and stylishly. There's something to be said for that. It's a fast food movie. You know it's fast food, you're not expecting a Michelin star meal, but the fries are good and leave you satisfied.